So if you rip the roof off a beehive in a panic, you know, you're not going to save the struggling bees inside.
No, definitely not. You're just going to get stung.
Right, because your sudden movement, the change in light, the vibration, all of that just signals an attack. And the colony just does what it's biologically wired to do, right? It defends itself.
And usually destroys its own delicate balance in the process. I mean, it's a completely natural biological reaction.
Which brings us to what we're unpacking in our deep dive today. We are exploring this genuinely radical idea for anyone who manages people, especially the folks in charge of protecting children in schools.
Yeah, it's a profound shift in perspective.
It really is. Because the mission today is looking at why leaders need to stop acting like, mechanics fixing broken parts and start acting a lot more like master beekeepers.
It sounds wild at first, but we usually approach crisis management, especially safeguarding vulnerable individuals, through a very diagnostic linear lens. You spot a problem, you isolate the individual, apply a fix or a punishment, and just assume the issue is resolved.
Like checking off a box.
Exactly. But human behavior doesn't happen in a vacuum. Harm, whether it's bullying, emotional distress, whatever, it almost always develops within an unhealthy relational ecosystem.
And if you're the type of person who loves understanding those invisible forces shaping group behavior, this is going to challenge some deeply held assumptions for you. We're looking at a source that takes apiary science, literally the study of bees, and applies it to administration.
It's fascinating.
Before we really get into the weeds, I just want to establish some quick context for you listening. The analysis references a DSL a lot. That stands for Designated Safeguarding Lead.
Right, which is a term heavily used in the UK and international education for the person responsible for child safety.
Yeah, but honestly, the lessons here apply to principals, HR directors, or literally anyone managing a complex group of people.
Oh, absolutely. Because what's compelling here is that it attacks the core flaw in how we handle social crises. It introduces this concept, the beekeeper principle.
Okay, lay that out for us. What is a beekeeper principle?
Well, an experienced beekeeper never judges the health of a colony by looking at a single bee. I mean, it's totally futile. A hive is completely interdependent. It survives through millions of tiny, constant relational interactions.
So you have to evaluate the collective.
Yes, the collective entity. You're zooming out from the individual to the health of the whole.
Okay, but let me stop you right there. Because applying that to teenagers or employees, that is a massive leap.
It is a big leap, yeah.
If I'm looking at a school, you're saying I shouldn't just look at the kid who's acting out or the kid who's withdrawing. I need to analyze the whole class.
Basically, yes.
But wait, doesn't this run the risk of diffusing responsibility? Like if a kid is actively being harmed by a peer, I can't just sit back and philosophize about the air quality of the classroom.
Right.
I mean, I have an immediate victim who needs protection and an aggressor who needs to be stopped right now.
And that is the immediate, visceral reaction most people have. It's a completely valid concern. You absolutely have to intervene to protect the individual in immediate danger.
Ah.
But, and what's fascinating here is, let's look at the mechanism of what happens next.
Okay.
Say you pull the aggressor out, you issue a suspension, you provide counseling for the victim, you've addressed the individual, sure.
Right, you did the intervention.
But a week later, you drop that victim right back into the exact same peer group. In the UK, they might call it a tutor group or a boarding dorm, but it's their daily social ecosystem.
Their safety net, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you haven't changed the culture of that room, you haven't actually safeguarded the victim at all. You've just sent them back into a toxic atmosphere.
Oh, wow. Because the behavior was just a symptom of the environment.
Precisely.
Yeah.
I mean, why do kids conform to toxic cultures? It's about social survival. If cruelty or exclusion has become normalized within a friend group, punishing one person doesn't change the normalization of that behavior.
Someone else will just take their place.
Another student will just step right up to fill that social role. The environment allowed it to grow in the first place. You have to treat the sick ecosystem, not just the symptomatic individual.
Okay, that clarifies a lot. So you aren't abandoning the individual. You're recognizing that their long-term safety is entirely dependent on the health of the system they live in.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
like, if the water in a fish tank is poisoned, you can't just give the sick fish a pill and toss it back in. You have to change the water.
That's a perfect analogy. And that leads to a crucial realization about disclosure, too. The overall emotional climate directly dictates whether someone will even ask for help.
Right. If the culture is dismissive or highly punitive, nobody is going to speak up.
Exactly. The system's health dictates the individual's safety.
But identifying that toxic water or toxic air, to go back to the bees, I mean, that's completely useless if you only notice it after the fish are dead.
Right, when the crisis has already happened.
Yeah. So how do you measure the quality of a social environment when everything looks fine on the surface? We all know teenagers and adults, for that matter, are experts at masking their behavior when authority figures walk in the room.
Oh, definitely. And this is where we get into the concept of reading the whispers.
Reading the whispers. I like that.
The source provides this striking phrase, the hive speaks before it collapses. A biological colony doesn't just spontaneously fail overnight without any warning.
Right.
The beekeeper notices incredibly subtle leading indicators long before a crisis hits.
Leading indicators, as opposed to lagging indicators, like a disciplinary record.
Exactly.
Because if I'm looking at a file, the harm is already done, the crisis is in the past.
Disciplinary data tells you where you failed yesterday. The whispers tell you where you are going to fail tomorrow. Experienced beekeepers tune into the frequency of the hive. They watch the patterns of movement at the entrance. They listen for a change in the pitch of the buzzing.
They notice the rhythm.
Right. If feeding rhythms alter, or if there is a sudden, unusual stillness, they are reading the atmosphere.
Which is fascinating, but translating that to a busy school hallway or a corporate office sound incredibly difficult. I mean, a beehive in a field is relatively isolated. A high school cafeteria is just sensory overload.
It's chaos.
Absolute chaos. So how do you isolate a whisper in an environment like that? What does a leading indicator of group stress actually look like in human behavior?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it looks like a shift in the baseline rhythm of relationships. You aren't looking for a major blowout.
Okay.
You're looking for a sudden uptick in low-level bickering within a specific group, or maybe a sudden fracturing of a friend group that has been tight-knit for years. But perhaps the most telling indicator is actually the absence of noise.
Wait, really? The absence of noise?
Yeah. Think about threat detection in human neurobiology. When humans sense a social threat, our natural instinct is often to freeze or withdraw.
Oh, wow. Can you give me a concrete example of what that collective freeze response looks like?
Sure. Imagine a common area, like a student lounge. Normally it's vibrant, loud, relaxed. But you start to notice that whenever a specific group of older students walks in, the volume just drops.
The energy shifts.
The physical posture of the younger students changes. They stop moving around as much. That sudden silence isn't just a lull in conversation. That silence is data.
The silence is data. That paints a very chilling picture.
It's the threat detection system of the entire room activating. That is the hive speaking.
So your job isn't to police every single argument. Your job is to notice when the fundamental rhythm of the community is off.
Exactly.
But I have to say, this sounds incredibly resource intensive. We're asking administrators to essentially map the emotional neurobiology of hundreds of people every single day.
It is exhausting. And that is the friction of ecological leadership. It requires what we call preventative pastoral care, this continuous low-level vigilance. It requires a staff that actually communicates with each other. The math teacher has to tell the homeroom teacher, hey, the dynamic in the second row felt really strange today. You have to synthesize those micro-observations into a macro picture.
Okay, so let's say you do it successfully. You synthesize the data, you spot the subtle signs of systemic stress, the barometer is dropping, and you know a storm is coming.
Right.
The natural instinct for any leader, especially a DSL, whose job title literally includes the word safeguarding, is to kick the door down and fix it immediately.
Of course it is.
But the analysis issues a massive warning here about the mechanics of intervention, right?
Yes, and this is where the beekeeper metaphor is perhaps most vital. We are culturally conditioned to believe that strong leadership means rapid, forceful, highly visible action.
Coming in hot.
Exactly. But when you're dealing with a stressed ecosystem, intervening carelessly will almost always damage the colony more than whatever problem you were trying to solve.
Let's dig into the why of that, because honestly, it feels completely counterintuitive. If I see a fire, I want to put it out fast.
But you aren't dealing with a fire. You're dealing with biology. Think about the bees again. If a hive is stressed and the beekeeper marches over, violently rips the lid off, and starts aggressively pulling out frames to find the problem, what happens?
They freak out.
The sudden change in light, the heavy vibration, it triggers an immediate biological defense response. They perceive a predator, they release alarm pheromones, panic cascades through the colony instantly, and they attack.
And teenagers have a very similar biological tripwire.
Oh, absolutely.
When an adult storms into a tense room and screams, "Everyone calm down," It instantly does the exact opposite. They aren't dealing with the rational part of the teenager's brain anymore.
Not at all. An aggressive, heavy-handed adult intervention bypasses the prefrontal cortex, the
Yep.
logical brain, and goes straight to the amygdala, the threat detector.
Right.
When a leader pulls a student out of class publicly or conducts aggressive interrogations, they're flooding the environment with stress energy. The students aren't consciously choosing to be difficult or evasive. They are biologically reacting to an environmental threat. They put up walls. They lie. Trust is instantly destroyed.
I'm thinking about how a beekeeper actually handles this, and it brings up the smoke. Have you ever wondered why beekeepers use smoke when they open a hive?
Well, I think many people assume the smoke just makes the bees sleepy or lethargic.
Right, that's the common myth. But functionally, it's actually about disrupting communication. When a bee gets alarmed, it releases that chemical pheromone to tell the rest of the hive to panic. The smoke physically masks that alarm pheromone.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, it literally stops the signal of panic from spreading from bee to bee. It keeps the whole system calm while the keeper does what they need to do.
That is a phenomenal parallel.
Yeah.
Because in a school setting or any high-stakes organization, a leader's calm, steady emotional presence is the smoke. It masks the panic.
Yes. When an adult walks into a highly volatile room, their emotional regulation dictates the neurobiology of everyone else. If the adult is panicked and reactive, mirror neurons in the students pick up on that and the alarm pheromone spreads. But if the adult is grounded, speaking slowly, moving predictably, they act as an emotional shock absorber. They are effectively masking the panic signals.
And that requires an enormous amount of discipline from the leader. The intervention has to be careful, proportionate, and system-aware.
Yeah.
If you've spent months doing the daily preventative relational work, your intervention won't feel like a sudden, aggressive invasion. It'll just feel like a natural, predictable extension of the support system they already know.
It's the difference between a police raid and a routine doctor's visit.
Exactly.
But this brings us to a crucial friction point. We spent this entire time talking about the collective, the ecosystem, the hive, and the source includes this what I call the honest bit because there's a very real danger here if we take this metaphor too literally.
There is. Any rigorous framework has to outline its own limitations. The analysis has this necessary caveat about the fundamental difference between apiary management and human safeguarding.
Because at the end of the day, humans are not bees.
No, they are not.
Students are not interchangeable worker drones whose only value is their contribution to the swarm. I mean, it would be pretty dystopian to treat a school like a literal hive.
Exactly. And while that sounds incredibly obvious, it's a trap leaders fall into all the time without even realizing it.
Really? How so?
Well, think about a beekeeper's ultimate goal. It's the biological survival of the collective. If a few bees die, but the hive survives the winter, the beekeeper was successful.
Right.
A safeguarding leader is operating on a completely different moral plane. They are protecting human dignity, individual well-being, and managing complex psychological development.
You cannot sacrifice the individual for the good of the group.
Exactly.
Like, you can't just quietly expel a deeply troubled student because they're disrupting the harmony of the school without ensuring they have a safe place to land. That isn't safeguarding. That's just PR management.
Right. It's institutional self-protection masked as ecosystem management.
Yeah.
True ecological safeguarding requires this grueling dual focus.
Zooming out and zooming in.
Yes. You maintain that wide-angle lens to monitor the group dynamics, but you must be able to instantly zoom in to fiercely protect the absolute dignity of the individual.
This raises an important question, though. How does a leader actually operationalize that? How do you build an environment that balances the collective health with the individual's needs without just completely burning out your staff?
It requires building what we can call developmental pathways. You don't just impose safety from the top down.
Yeah.
You build the social capacity of the community itself.
Okay, what does that look like in practice?
It starts with foundational belonging. Before you can ask a group to regulate itself, every single person in that group must feel that their identity is respected and safe.
So it's not just about stopping bullying. It's about actively cultivating an environment where bullying feels fundamentally out of place to the students themselves.
Precisely. You train the staff to recognize the whispers, yes, but you also empower the students to recognize their own ecosystem.
Oh, I see.
When you build healthy peer dynamics, the students themselves begin to act as the immune system of the environment. They start self-correcting the low-level toxicity before an adult ever needs to intervene.
That is the pinnacle of the leadership layer right there, creating an environment that naturally resists harm because the collective baseline of respect is just so high.
And that takes time. That takes years of consistent, predictable, calm leadership.
It really does. And as we pull all these threads together, I think the takeaways here extend far beyond the walls of a school.
Oh, without a doubt.
If you're listening to this right now, you exist within multiple human ecosystems. Your office is a hive, your extended family is a hive, your local community board, totally a hive.
And the dynamics remain remarkably similar across all of them. The health of those systems will inevitably dictate your personal well-being within them.
So, to summarize the framework we've explored for you today, first, we have to stop treating social crises as isolated mechanical breakdowns. We have to zoom out and look at the health of the relational ecosystem, the water the fish are swimming in.
Right.
Second, we have to train ourselves to read the whispers. Look for the leading indicators of stress. Notice those sudden silences, the shifts in rhythm, the changes in posture before the collapse actually happens.
And third, when intervention is necessary, it has to be executed with the calm, methodical precision of a master beekeeper.
Yes, bring the smoke.
Bring the smoke, because careless panic disruption, even when fueled by the absolute best intentions, will almost always trigger a defensive reaction that causes more harm than good.
Which brings us to a final, rather provocative thought for you to mull over. We've established how deeply a group responds to the presence of its leadership. We've seen how an adult's emotional regulation acts as the smoke that calms the panic. But this forces us to hold up a mirror.
It does. The analysis brilliantly asks leaders to consider what their wider emotional hive is currently communicating. But I think we have to take that one step further.
Okay.
What happens when the beekeepers themselves, the leadership, the DSLs, the adults in charge, are the ones unknowingly emitting the alarm pheromones?
Oh, wow. So if the people in charge are exhausted, panicked, and reactive,
Then the system will be exhausted, panicked, and reactive. If aggressive movement creates defensive reactions in the colony, imagine the cascading effect when the keeper's own hands are
oh,
shaking.
the hive feels it instantly.
They do. Our own emotional regulation isn't just a personal wellness goal. It is the structural foundation of the safety of everyone we lead.
How does the hive react when the keeper's hands are shaking? That is a haunting and vital question to ask yourself. Whether you are leading a boardroom, managing a classroom, or just trying to navigate your own family dynamics, remember you can't just fix the broken part. You have to tend to the environment, and it starts with your own steady presence. Take that with you into whatever ecosystem you are stepping into today. We'll catch you next time on the Deep Dive.